From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the News 8 Daily 8 Podcast with Wish TV's Kylie Conway. A Wish TV News 8 update.
Hi, this is Kylie Conway, and this is your News 8 Daily 8 for Wednesday, May 25th. As far as weather-wise here in Indianapolis, we're going to get into the low 80s. It's going to be breezy, wind gusts at 25 to 30 miles per hour at times, and rain off and on throughout the day. But certainly the biggest cloud over our Wednesday is the senseless killings that happened in Texas at an elementary school there. We have so many different elements of the story playing out throughout the morning, comments coming in from all around the world. First, let's talk about what we know happened in Texas yesterday, in Uvalde, Texas. Here is Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
There are families who are in mourning right now, and the state of Texas is in mourning with them for the reality that these parents are not going to be able to pick up their children.
Investigators are now working to figure out why the 18-year-old walked through at the elementary school, killing 19 children and 2 adults. New from overnight, what we learned is family members did identify at least one of the victims. Eva Morales was a 4th grade teacher. The shooting happened just before noon yesterday at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. It's in South Texas, about 80 miles west of San Antonio. Parents waited for hours outside of the school and local hospitals for news about their children. The shooting is the deadliest at a U.S. school since a gunman killed 20 children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary 10 years ago. Officials identified the gunman as 18-year-old Salvador Ramos. Police say he shot his grandmother, crashed his car outside the school in a ditch, then ran into the school, shooting into classrooms before officers shot and killed him. According to police, Ramos shot 2 officers. They will both survive. Police also say the grandmother survived, but her condition's not known. Authorities say Ramos legally purchased the guns used in the shooting from a store after his 18th birthday.
We're in the process of obtaining detailed background information on the subject, his motive, the types of weapons used, the legal authority to possess them, and conduct a comprehensive crime scene investigation and reconstruction.
Police say the gunman acted alone. The Texas Department of Public Safety thinks law enforcement confronted Ramos outside the school, but he got around them. Tomorrow would have been the students' last day of school. The district superintendent says the rest of the school year is canceled. Investigators think Ramos posted photos on Instagram of the 2 guns he used in the shooting. Now they're looking through phone records and trying to figure out if Ramos posted other statements online. And President Biden delivered an urgent call for new restrictions on firearms. He spoke last night from the White House, telling Americans to turn their pain into action. He called on the nation to pray for the victims' families, but also work harder to prevent the next tragedy. Biden blamed firearm manufacturers and their supporters for blocking gun legislation in Washington. He says many countries struggle with mental health issues, yet the United States is the only country where mass shootings occur at a high frequency. Biden pleaded to lawmakers to stand up to the gun lobby.
The idea that an 18-year-old kid can walk into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons is just wrong. What in God's name do you need an assault weapon for except to kill someone? Deer aren't running through the forest with Kevlar vests on, for God's sake.
Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat, gave passionate remarks on the Senate floor. He represented Newtown, Connecticut in the House at the time of the Sandy Hook massacre. Murphy said Congress had 10 years to take action and asked why his colleagues bother to run for office if they won't do anything.
I'm here on this floor to beg, to literally get down on my hands and knees and beg my colleagues. Find a path forward here. Work with us to find a way to pass laws that make this less likely. I understand my Republican colleagues will not agree to everything that I may support, but there is a common denominator that we can find.
There have been, so far, at least 212 mass shootings this year, according to the nonprofit organization Gun Violence Archive. That's more mass shootings than days so far in 2022. The Gun Violence Archive defines a mass shooting as a shooting that injured or killed 4 or more people, not including the shooter. The White House has lowered flags at half-staff in honor of the victims killed in the Texas school shooting. Now, Governor Holcomb is also ordering all flags in Indiana to follow suit. Flags at the State House and at all other state buildings will be lowered until sunset on Saturday. Former Vice President and former Indiana Governor Mike Pence and his wife Karen are offering their condolences to the families of the victims. Pence did a tweet that reads he and his wife are deeply saddened and heartbroken to hear of the horrific shooting that took place at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And we are praying God's comfort for the families of the children and teachers who were tragically killed. Members of Indiana's congressional delegation are calling for action after the mass shooting. Congressman Andre Carson says, I am heartbroken by this horrific act of violence and praying for every victim. A nation that witnesses multiple shootings at elementary schools and doesn't change its gun laws is a nation that has lost its way. We must enact life-saving reforms immediately. Congresswoman Victoria Spartz also addressed the attack, calling the shooting heartbreaking. We join together in prayer for the victims of today's shooting in Uvalde, Texas, she says. Let us rally around the victims' families and their community. And the shooting pushed aside scores as the top story in the sports world. Several games started with a moment of silence, including the Texas Rangers and Los Angeles baseball game and the Dallas Mavericks Golden State Warrior NBA playoff game. Ahead of tip-off, Warriors coach Steve Kerr made a passionate plea for gun control.
When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. But I want every person here, every person listening to this to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today?
Colts owner Jim Irsay tweeted about the massacre and his team's mental health awareness campaign. He wrote in part, the pain is unthinkable and the tears are too many and too often. This is why Kick the Stigma is so important to our mission to get to the core of this tragedy with solutions. And Wish TV medical expert and former Surgeon General Dr. Jerome Adams is also calling for more focus on mental health. He spoke with News 8's Phil Sanchez on what changes need to be made.
We really got to get serious about paying attention to mental health of everyone across the board and paying attention to safer firearm ownership if we're going to create a better world for our kids. This really hits me hard as a parent of 3 school-age kids. It's unacceptable, and we've got to do more than thoughts and prayers this time around.
Local gun control advocates are pleading for change. Jennifer Hahn is a volunteer leader with the Indiana chapter for Moms Demand Action. She says she's worried about where the country's headed.
We see it every night on the news that young people are accessing firearms and young people are killing other young people. That has to end. And the way that ends is through strong gun policy that doesn't punish the everyday gun owner who would like to have one for home protection. That's not a hoop to jump through in order to follow these regulations. And gun laws that are just based in common sense. That's what we need. And it is not common sense to have children shot in their classroom.
She adds that new laws won't completely end the violence, but making guns less accessible to young people, she says, along with people dealing with mental health issues, will make a big difference. And 4 years ago today, a 7th grader opened fire inside a classroom in Noblesville. It happened at Noblesville West Middle School. The gunfire severely wounded a 13-year-old student and a teacher, Jason Seaman. Students say he saved lives by throwing a basketball at the shooter, then tackling him. The 13-year-old who fired the shots admitted to the shooting. A judge sentenced him to the State Department of Corrections until he is 18. After that, he'll be on probation. And we have headlines away from the Texas mass shooting. We have much more coverage of it continuing online at wishtv.com. To those other headlines, though, Indiana's trans athletes bill is now set to take effect on July 1st. Republican lawmakers voted to override Governor Eric Holcomb's veto, joining more than a dozen other states adopting similar laws. The measure bans transgender girls from participating in girls' sports at any K-12 school. The ACLU sued to block the law less than an hour after yesterday's vote. Democrats say this is time that would be better spent elsewhere.
Gas prices, they continue to climb. Indiana wages fall behind the rest of the nation. Yet we are completely ignoring these issues and coming together to override this veto.
Just 4 Republicans joined Democratic senators in voting to uphold the veto. Governor Holcomb said in a statement after the vote that his position has not changed. Republican Senate President Pro Tem Roderick Bray says the state needs the policy and called it a matter of simple fairness. And many are mourning a local student athlete who died this week at practice. Ramon Rowley was 15. He was a freshman at Lawrence North. Lawrence school leaders say he died suddenly from cardiac arrest on Monday. Officials say Rowley was healthy and had no known health problems. Students we spoke to say they are thinking about his family.
I really hope the best for them because I understand how much it hurts to lose a family member, so I can definitely feel their pain, understand it.
It's surprising because he was young and things like that don't really happen here, so it's like sometimes scary and sad to think about it.
And yesterday was the last day of classes for Lawrence schools. Police are investigating an Indiana church pastor after a woman accused him of sexual misconduct in front of the congregation. Someone recorded the entire thing from the pew Sunday at New Life Christian Church and World Outreach. Here's a portion of what was captured.
And to those of you who are wounded from this fresh hurt, to you, the church, I repent for the adultery and my silence. Please forgive me. In accordance with our church bylaws, I'm stepping down from ministry responsibilities, and have committed to the Lord and now to you that I will submit to the process and recommendations of this board. If you love us, please let us talk.
For 27 years, I lived in a prison. It was not 20 years. I lived in a prison of lies and shame. Lying to protect the Lowe family. For years, I thought I was a horrible person having suicidal thoughts, not realizing what had been truly done to me. That I was a victim, and I would still be in a prison if my brother, and many of you know him, Edgar Wolf, had not approached me just 2 weeks ago with what he had seen as a teenager that bothered him all these years. His pastor in bed with his younger sister, a t-shirt and underwear on. People knew but were too afraid to come forward, and they have now. The lies and the manipulation have to stop. I was a prisoner and you kept me in your prison. I'm a prisoner no longer. I was just 16 when you took my virginity on your office floor. Do you remember that? I know you do, and I have plenty of other stories that I could bring to remembrance. You did things to my teenage body that had never and should have never been done. If you can't admit the truth, you have to answer to God. You are not the victim here. I tried to tell someone, but all that was done was cover up.
If you did it, you need to admit it. That's right. 100%.
Did it? You need to admit it.
I just got a chance to meet
We need to hear from
Miss
our
Teresa.
pastor, the man who was Atlanta.
Give me the microphone.
Not you, Ryan.
Jay, I told you I committed adultery. I told you it went on far too long.
Did you do it? That's all we need to know.
Yes, we did.
You didn't tell them she was 14 years old.
No, at 16.
Sorry, 16.
She was 16 years old, Jay. Okay? And it was wrong. I can't say it. I can't make it right. I can't make it any better.
So again, this was Sunday. It was at the church in Warsaw, Kosciuszko County there. What you heard was Pastor John Lowe confessed that he'd committed adultery 20 years ago in front of the congregation, resigning. Then a woman walks up and shares her side of the story. Then the pastor asked for forgiveness from the church, and that's so far all that's happened. But again, the police are investigating this, and we'll be sure to keep watching how that investigation unfolds. And the NFL is explaining the decision to keep the scouting combine in Indianapolis for at least 2 more years. Our sports director, Anthony Calhoun, broke the news story that the city will host the Combine in 2023 and 24. The league held it here since 1987, but put the future of it very much in question by opening up bids to other cities through 2028. Los Angeles and Dallas both won it.
I think it's a recognition that Indianapolis really values the Combine. Also that they've done a terrific job on it. I think people are comfortable with that opportunity because we've done it for so long.
News 8 spoke with the general manager of the JW Marriott. He says the 5 major hotels in Indianapolis will reserve between 6,000 and 7,000 rooms during the week of the Combine. The second flight bringing baby formula will arrive in Washington, D.C. today. This as the FDA commissioner prepares to answer lawmakers' questions about what led to the shortage. Robert Califf says in a prepared testimony that plans to inspect the Abbott baby formula factory in Michigan were slowed by COVID and logistical problems. The plant shut down in February over contamination. Califf will tell lawmakers the FDA planned to visit the plant in December, but a dozen Abbott employees tested positive for COVID. Abbott and the FDA agreed to reopen the plant on June 4th. An Iraqi citizen who lived and worked in Indianapolis is held without bond this morning. He's accused of hatching a plot to kill former President George W. Bush. The U.S. government says the plan was in retaliation for casualties in the Iraq War. Federal authorities say police arrested Shihab Ahmed Shihab yesterday morning. Prosecutors also claim Shihab also schemed to smuggle other Iraqis into the U.S. to help him. An FBI report shows Shihab worked at a halal market in Indianapolis and had an apartment nearby. It says he lived in both Indy and Columbus, Ohio, traveling between the two regularly. President Bush's office responded to the threat in a statement. It reads, President Bush has all the confidence in the world in the United States Secret Service and our law enforcement and intelligence communities. Shihab is due in court Friday. President Biden signs an executive order on policing as the nation marks the 2nd anniversary of George Floyd's death. In the executive order, federal law enforcement agencies will be required to review and revise policies on use of force. The White House confirms the order would also create a database to help track officer misconduct. However, the Biden administration cannot require local police departments to participate. Officials are now trying to find a way to encourage them to do so. Georgia's governor will stay in the race. Brian Kemp defeated former Senator David Perdue in the state's Republican primary to move on to the general election. Perdue had former President Trump's endorsement. Kemp had backing from former Vice President and former Indiana Governor Mike Pence. Kemp's win pits him against Democrat Stacey Abrams in November.
But I want to be crystal clear with all of you here tonight. Our battle is far from over. Tonight, the fight for the soul of our state begins to make sure that Stacey Abrams is not going to be our governor or the next president.
Herschel Walker leveraged his name recognition to win the Republican primary for Senate. The former football star easily beat the rest of a crowded field. He's a longtime friend of former President Trump, who urged Walker to run. Walker would take on the incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock in the general election. New home prices keep rising, but fewer people are buying. New numbers from Housing and Urban Development say sales slumped 17% last month, the 4th straight monthly decline, dropping to the slowest sales pace since the earliest days of the pandemic. At the same time, prices are still climbing. The median price of a newly built home was more than $450,000 last month, 20% more than the year before. One of the most famous dresses in the world is off the auction block. A judge halted the sale of a blue and white checked gingham dress worn by Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz. Catholic University of America was set to auction it off Tuesday, saying a priest there had it before he died and that his vow of poverty means it belongs to the school. A relative of the priest says the dress is part of his estate, which belongs to her. A judge says the dress cannot be sold while its ownership is in question. News 8 wants to hear your Indy 500 stories. Submit them on our website at the very top of wishtv.com in the As Seen On section. Click Share Your Indy 500 Memories, fill out the form, and we may share your story on Daybreak race day morning. And finally, the Indiana State Teachers Association named Anthony Dean as the new Minority Educator of the Year. Dean is a special education teacher at Greenbrier Elementary. His colleagues tell us they nominated him for the award because of the work he puts in every day to inspire those around him. Dean says his main focus is making sure his students know their futures are bright.
I have a big task and I have a big job, and I take that job very seriously. I do it because I love my kids. I love working in the school district. I love working with teachers.
Dean also tells us about the need for teachers of color. He says for most kids at Greenbrier, he may be one of the very few black male teachers they'll ever have. This has been your News 8 Daily 8 for Wish TV. I'm Kylie Conway. Online at wishtv.com and follow us on Facebook when you search Wish TV.
This is the News 8 Daily 8 podcast with Wish TV's Kylie Conway. A Wish TV News 8 update on demand. For even more, on demand and on the go. Connect with Wish TV on Facebook at wishtv.com and on the free Wish TV mobile app. Thank you for listening. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow this podcast for updates every weekday morning on the All Indiana Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcast.